gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Izubee Charles on November 1st, 2023. Ooh, messed that up. And I would like to thank you all for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. I'm joined this morning by Stephen Wagner as we break down the news of the day, and we have plenty of it on the first day of November. So first up in your Miami Hurricanes news, if you missed CaneSport Live with myself and Mr. Gary Furman yesterday, make sure to check it out. It is on the site this morning. Always awesome interacting with all the fans, talking Hurricanes football from the last week and this upcoming week with NC State just days away. So if you missed that yesterday, make sure to check out yesterday's CaneSport Live with myself and Gary Furman. Also, tonight, be sure to tune into the Lamar Thomas Show at 8 p.m. as Gary and one of the great Hurricanes, Lamar Thomas, chop it up and discuss all your Hurricanes news later this evening. Also, be sure to check out this morning post-Hurricane notes on Ruben Bain, Javion Cohen, and Branson Dean, and other guys later on today as well. Stephen, before we move on to a lot of other things today, I kind of want to get your thoughts about Saturday's win over Virginia. I know it wasn't kind of the fight everybody expected, but Miami pulled out another overtime win versus the Cavaliers, second ACC win this year. Just what are your quick thoughts about that game?
Yeah, my first thought is thank God Miami has an offensive line because put yourself in this situation a year ago where you're effectively in a rock fight with a team that has roster talent that's not even close to the cumulative level of yours, a program that doesn't have the same resources, a program that doesn't recruit at the same level, and a program that didn't make the same blockbuster hire. No disrespect to Tony Elliott. But, Mario Cristobal, whenever he came here from Oregon, everyone knew what he was. He was a guy who went to multiple New Year's Six games in Oregon. He was a guy who had the Ducks in contention for the CFP. And when you're effectively in a rock fight with a team that, let's face it, you should be handling a team that you were favored to beat by almost 20 points. I mean, man, this situation last season, when Miami was in this game, they really didn't know where to turn because they didn't have that reliable offensive element that they could really turn to whenever things got ugly to kind of bail them out, to kind of be their Superman and kind of get them out of trouble whenever they really needed it. And I thought Saturday, the offensive line really proved that it can get Miami out of trouble. Whenever Tyler Van Dyke is not having a tremendous day, whenever the receivers are kind of okay, they're not having their best day, but they're not having their worst day. Whenever you have an element that you can really rely on, like your offensive line, I mean, man, that is the luxury that Mario Cristobal was brought here to bring. Offensive line play travels. Quarterback play doesn't always travel. Receiver play doesn't always travel. Whenever you're overly reliant on the skill positions, that doesn't always travel. But whenever you have physicality, when you have a team that's built on dominating the line of scrimmage, that makes your job a lot easier. And I think that we really saw on Saturday that this really is going to be something that we think is going to be sustainable and something that should be able to get Miami out of trouble whenever they seem overmatched.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same exact thing. Man, if they did not build this offensive line this past offseason, things would have looked a lot different in a few of these matchups. And you kind of see it when Coach Mirabal came in, when Coach Cristobal came in, their big emphasis was, hey, we got to have this football team looking like a Power 5 program that competes for the national championship up front, and it all starts up front. And you see just how important having guys like Matt Lee, Javion Cohen, Francis Malagoa, Inez Cooper, Jalen Rivers, just all those guys being Maulers. The defense knows you're running it, and to still be able to push these guys back at the line of scrimmage 3 or 4 yards, create holes for your running back is crucial. And I feel like that's going to be Miami's key kind of for the rest of the year. Obviously, we can hope that Tyler Van Dyke in that passing game kind of comes back, but hey, that's not a bad thing to rely on when you're 5 guys up front. You can trust, and you can put all your eggs in a basket behind them and say, hey, push those guys in front of you, make some holes, and let's get this done. So awesome to see that this offensive line is sticking together, staying healthy, and kind of finding its peaks, at the tail end of the season where it's most important. But kind of sticking on that offensive line topic too, and the running backs, Mark Fletcher is a guy that we saw came back from injury against the Cavaliers, had the game-winning touchdown. And this morning we take kind of a deeper look into his role behind that offensive line and all that good stuff. I had the opportunity to watch him during his senior year at American Heritage. I was blown away by this guy, just seeing how powerful he was and how stronger he got towards the tail end of the game. Steven, you saw a little glimpse of him in Alamo at the All-American Bowl. Just what were your thoughts about him now, and have they changed? What were your thoughts about him before, and have they changed this now? Just what are your overall thoughts about Mark Fletcher making this impact as a true freshman?
Man, he looks like the prospect, and he's looking like the prospect that I think a lot of us really thought he was going to turn into. And that is a guy who overall is just powerful. He's a powerful downhill attacking running back who is proving very quickly that he is an every down back. You can keep him out there for all 3 downs. He's not a situational guy. He's not a dude that you're going to flex out and do a bunch of, like really creative stuff or like scheme ways for him to touch the ball. He is a guy who you can give the ball to whenever you need 3, 4, 5 yards, and you can consistently rely on him being able to get that. I mean, the rest of the stuff that he's able to do, especially in terms of his ability as a pass catcher and his agility and his, really his ability in open space, I think personally is kind of a luxury. If we're being honest, I think that's just icing on the cake. Whenever you look at what he's already capable of doing, he is not afraid to put his head down. He is not afraid to attack, and he is not afraid to get north and south. He's a north and south runner much more than an east and west guy. He doesn't want to be moving left to right. He's at his best and he's his happiest whenever he's able to attack right down the middle of an offensive line. And I think that he's shown that that's really what he is through these first few games of the season. Whenever he's been healthy, I think the biggest obstacle for him is really just going to be his health. As long as he can stay healthy, I think this is trending in a very positive direction, because I personally think he's showing that he's not close to his ceiling. He's taking a step in that direction, but I still don't think he's close to his ceiling.
Yeah, the best is definitely yet to come from Mark Fletcher. And I remember during the first fall scrimmage of the year, his first touchdown at Hard Rock, I asked him about it. He's like, man, you could have scored running behind the offensive line. So just seeing him continue to score at Hard Rock, seeing him continue to grow as a player on and off the field is awesome to see. And just those 2023 guys, man, that class at Mario Cristobal really, really put a lot of effort in. You see guys, Ruben Bain, obviously he's having an amazing year. Mark Fletcher, Francis Malagoa, all those guys are really, really contributing early on for Miami. And we still have, 15 to 20 guys in that class that are real ball players. So definitely kudos, and we're tipping your hat to Mario Cristobal for that 2023 class and just seeing the impact that they have on the program so early. So definitely excited to see not only Marks, but the rest of those guys, potential in the future, moving forward. But kind of jumping into recruiting a little bit more, the 2024 class feels like, early signing day is coming up closer and closer and closer, and we're getting there, about a month away now, a month and some change, Steven. Just one of the big guys that was, at the game last week, Elijah Lofton. We heard, yesterday and Monday that he was flirting a little bit with taking visits elsewhere and this and that, but you decided to put your journalism hat on and go straight to the source. So after talking to Mr. Lofton, just what was all that about and what did you get from him?
Yeah, so it looks like for now, or at least what he told us, is that he's not planning on visiting other schools. He's not planning on visiting other schools. He's all in on Miami. He's 110% locked in with the Canes. That's what he told me. Other schools have been making these pushes, mostly Texas and Washington. You'll remember Miami actually had to hold off a late push from Texas right before Lofton committed back in June. And Washington was another program that had been recruiting Lofton as well. So for now, it looks like everything is shored up with Miami. He was down here over the weekend for the Virginia game. That was his first game day visit down to Miami. And it looks like things really did go pretty well. He had a chance to spend some extended time around Mario Cristobal and Cody Waddell, the tight ends coach. And it seems like things are, very shored up. He's been communicating with the Hurricanes about, everything that's going on in his recruitment. And, I can definitely see why, the idea of, being flirted with by programs like Texas and Washington could be a little bit concerning to fans. But for now, he's telling us that he doesn't plan on visiting anywhere else. He's 100% locked in with Miami.
Yeah, I saw, a couple of people on Twitter and, our message board kind of talking about the situation and kind of saying, hey, I don't blame them for flirting, with the production the tight ends have had this year. But I'm just saying, no, let's not hit the panic red button. Let's calm down. It's still, Shannon Dawson's first year. I get the tight ends aren't producing at the level that a lot of people want to, but let's not hit the panic button just yet. I really do like Elijah Lofton as a prospect. Solid guy. He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest, but he's just a ball player. And I feel like he can be a guy that can come in and add a lot of versatility to the offense and kind of be a real big guy that makes an impact early on if he ends up, which we hope he does, in Coral Gables, next year for the Hurricanes. But, jumping into that 2025 class, we had another first-time visitor coming out of Fort Myers, Florida, in Winston Watkins Jr., who's a Colorado commit, a four-star wide receiver who's the number 61 overall prospect in the class. He shares his thoughts with us about the visit, and it's kind of interesting. He's a guy that got offered by the previous coaching staff, not the previous coaching staff, the previous offensive coordinator in Josh Gaddis. And this was kind of his first time kind of being around, Shannon Dawson, Kevin Beard, and he really liked, what he saw from Miami, like what he saw from the receivers and all that good stuff. And I asked him, obviously committed to Colorado for, almost a year now. He committed last December. And I said, hey, what was the reason that you wanted to get out to Miami? He said, hey, it's a business at the end of the day. You never know what's going to happen over there. And I have to keep all my relationships, good and all that stuff. So just hearing that from a young, a 16-year-old kid, knowing, hey, this is a business, I have to keep all my options open, was very interesting to hear. I'm not going to give all that he said away, so make sure to check out the story on Winston Watkins, a 2025 Colorado commit. Steven, as we near the end of the high school year, I know postseason around the corner, we've seen a lot of guys play this year. We've seen a lot of the recruits and everyone play this year. Just with the year coming to an end, just what guys to you have really, really stood out, and what guys do you think can potentially make an impact, when they get to Miami? Kind of like a market.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been really high on him really all fall. I've been singing his praises constantly. I'm going to keep singing his praises. I'm going to go with Chance Robinson. One of the biggest reasons is you and I went to St. Thomas's game against Dillard last Friday, and we saw Chance Robinson drop a pass that it was very catchable. It was just an easy little over-the-shoulder fade. He 1,000% should have caught it. He's caught a billion like them before. And the first thought that went through my head, and I told this to you, was I think that's the first time I've literally ever seen him drop a ball in any instance. This man has been as sure-handed as really anyone else in the class. And he's a guy that I personally am really, really high on. I think he's a high floor prospect, and he's getting better really with every single season. Big physical frame, great body control, does a really, really good job kind of handling corners that are at or underneath his size. I mean, he's a guy who I just have, all the faith in the world. And I think that he's really kind of that prototypical ex-receiver. I think he's a guy who he might be someone that you kind of scheme touches up for early in his career, because he's a guy who's getting a lot faster too. So if you want to use him on things like jet sweeps, I could see you doing that. If you want to, maybe use him as a blocking receiver on some of these receiver screens and some of this underneath stuff, I could definitely see that too. I think there are just 1,000 different possibilities for what you can do with a guy like Chance Robinson. And then another guy who has, really been impressive to me, and it really not so much from just what he's doing on the field in terms of the stats that he's putting up, but really in terms of, I think, what he is showing his potential, or how versatile he's showing that he can be, how potentially versatile he could be for Miami. And that's going to be Chris Wheatley Humphrey. That's a name we haven't mentioned really a ton. But he was a guy who really put up video game numbers at South Broward a year ago. He put up video game numbers in the first half of the season this year. But I really think that Miami is just going to have a billion different possibilities for what they can potentially do with him. I think that he's a guy he could kind of be used as a little bit of a scat back. I think he could be used as a defensive back if they wanted to put him at DB. I think that he could be sort of a Christopher Johnson type of speedster if they want to use him that way. With Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, I really think he's more of a true athlete than just a running back. Because the question is, especially at the high school level, how involved can we make him? How much can we get Chris to do for us? And I'm a huge fan of the idea of don't recruit football players, recruit athletes, because athletes figure it out. Athletes are athletic enough to make these things happen. And I think Chris Wheatley-Humphrey is 1,000% one of them.
Yeah, Coach Harris is building a stable of running backs in that room. Chris Wheatley-Humphreys, Chris Johnson Jr., Mark Fletcher, Kevin Riley coming in. A bunch of young talent in their running back room, and going to be running behind a pretty good offensive line. So a lot of good talent, flown through Miami these last two classes, and we expect that to keep coming under Cristobal and those recruiting guys. But that's all that we have for today's show. If you like what you saw today, please leave a big thumbs up. And if you aren't already subscribed to CaneSport.com and our YouTube channel, hit that button, head to the website, get a subscription. We have a new special out right now. If you're a first-time member, your first month is $1, 99 cents, 100 cents, whatever it may be. Just do that and test it out and come see if you like what Steven and myself and Gary and Matt have to bring to the table. So for Steven Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.